Hello, this is Andrew Davis, and we'll be covering chapter 2.3 today and chapter 2.4 later. But for now, 2.3, and it is on how to graph functions and looking at slopes and various different equations. So for now, we're just going to be focusing on linear equations and functions, and we're going to be talking about what these look like, how to find them, and how to graph them. Okay? So first, let's talk about linear functions. A linear function is any function that can be written in this form, where it has, this is commonly called the slope-intercept form. Okay, and functions can be written in other forms, like in the general form, which looks like this. But any other forms can be solved so that they look like this form here. So in general, we talk about a linear function as any function that can be turned into this form through your basic manipulation of algebra. Okay, so now that we know what a linear function is, we need to talk about slope. Slope is the m here. And what is slope? Slope is a way of interpreting change of one variable compared to another. So it's a rate of change would be another word for slope. Rate of change. You've probably heard of it as rise over run. So the rate at which the y component, the rate at which y changes versus change in x. And we have an equation for it. An equation for the slope when dealing with 2 points looks like this. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's slope. Now typically we're going to go through and I'm going to show you several problems that they'll give you to solve in this. The first thing is they're going to ask you to find the slope given 2 points. So given 2 points, how do you find the slope? Well, first thing, let's just do an example. So I'll give you 2 points. Make this one negative here. So there are 2 points. We have 2 points and we want to find the slope of a line if we were to connect these 2 points. Well, you just plug it into the equation above. I always label my points first. We'll call this x1, this is y1, and this will be x2 and y2. And then you plug them in. So the equation, which you have to have memorized, is that, and you plug y2 is 1, and then we have a minus. We have a minus here, and we have a minus here. So then you plug in minus a minus 2. Oh, so 1 minus is from here, 1 minus is from there. All over x2, which is 3, and then we have another minus here, and then y1, or x, wait, my bad. I switched these. This should be minus a minus 2. My bad. This should not be negative 2 here. That should be 1. Okay? And then we would get our slope. Now, the problem come here, and this is a common problem, is that 1 minus 1 is 0 over 3 plus 2, which is 5, so 0 over 5, and that returns us a slope of 0. Okay? Now, they won't always be 0, and they won't always be 1 over 0. Usually, you're going to end up with a number. So let's try another one, a number other than 0. Let's do negative 2, and then we'll do 3 and 1. So try this one. Again, you have y2 minus y1, so this is over x2 minus x1, so this we'll call x1, y1, x2, y2, plug it in again. You'll have y2, which is 1, minus a minus 2 over 3 minus a minus 2. So this 2 is this one, and this 2, wait, here, this 2 is this one. Notice that they have the double negatives, one from the equation, one from the numbers, so we can rewrite this as 1 plus 2 over 3 plus 2, which is a slope of 3/5, which means that for every increase in y of 3, you have an increase in x of 5. That's what the slope is interpreted as. Okay? Now, so that's one problem I have, finding slope given 2 points. Another problem they might have is find the slope given an equation. So the next thing is they'll give you a general equation. And they might ask you, what is the slope of this equation? Well, in order to find the slope of this equation, we need to put it in the slope-intercept form. It needs to be y equals mx plus b, all right? So in order to make it in y equals mx plus b, we need to solve for y. So you're first going to move everything over except for the y. So if we move the 4x over and the 12 over, and leave the 3y where it's at, when we move it over, it's going to change its sign, end up with that. Then what do? Now we need to get rid of the coefficient in front of the y, which is 3, and divide both sides by 3. Get y equals negative 4/3 minus 4. X, I forgot my x, negative 4/3 x minus 4. Your slope is always the thing in front of the x. So if it's written out of order, just find the x and the slope will be in front of it when you've solved for y. So here's our slope. Now this is a negative slope. So that means it's going to go, instead of the other one, the 3/5 was up 3 to the right 5. This one's going to be down 4 to the right 3. Okay, that's one way of reading it. So that's another problem that they can do. Well, let's move on. Now let's say, what if they gave you a point and a slope? And they wanted an equation line. So this one, they give you a point and a slope, and they want you to give them an equation. Usually in the y equals mx plus b form, okay? So, example of that would be, let's say we have a slope, an m of 1/2, and we have a point of 4/5, okay? And they want you to put it in an equation. Well, we have a formula that you can use to do this. And this is a formula you need to memorize. Y minus y1 equals m x minus x1, all right? Now, we got to label our points. We have our m here, which we will put there. But we need to find our x1 and y1, so we'll label them. Here's x1, y1. And then we'll just plug and chug. So we plug everything in the equation. You have y minus 5, that's your y1, equals 1/2 in parentheses x minus 4. Okay? Now you distribute like that. And then simplify. And then lastly, we need to add the 5 to both sides, so we're solving for y. And you'll end up with the equation 1/2 x equals 3. Plus 3. 1/2 x plus 3. Y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Okay? Now, that is one thing they'll have you do, is given a point and a slope, find the equation of the line. Now they can also ask you to find the equation of the line given 2 points. Well, given 2 points, so a point and a point, how do you find the equation of the line? And you can do that by remembering the 2 formulas you were supposed to have memorized. The first one is the equation of the slope. The second one is this equation from last problem. It's called the point slope equation of a line. Okay, if you have these two formulas memorized, you don't need to memorize the third one, you can use these. Okay, so as an example, let's say they want us to find the equation of the line given these 2 points. Well, given these 2 points, the first thing to do is label the points. I always do that. So we'll call this x1, y1. This will be x2, y2. The second thing after you do that is to find the slope. So we need to find m first. So we'll find m. m equals y2 minus y1. So y2 is 6 minus a minus 3. We have a minus from the formula and a minus from the 3 over negative 2, x2, minus a minus 4. And you'll end up with 6 plus 3 over negative 2 plus 4, which is 9 over 2. So that'll give us a slope of 9/2. Okay? So that's our m. Now, once we have an m, so we've used this equation here now, so we're done with that. Now we need to use this equation. Okay, so we're going to plug this point here, since we've labeled it point 1, and the slope here into the green equation and solve it. So y minus y1, which is minus a minus 3, equals the slope, which is 9/2, times x, and again we have a double negative because there's 2 negatives, minus a minus 4. Now we'll change those double negatives to pluses. We get that. Then we're going to distribute the 9/2 to both of those. At this point it's similar to the problem we did above. Okay, 9/2 times 4 is 18. Now we subtract 3 from both sides. And we get our final answer, y equals 9/2 x plus 15. So that is find the equation of the line given 2 points. Okay. Now, so that's kind of the algebra part of this chapter. The next part they move into is graphing. How do you graph? So in this previous one, we were given 2 points. We used them to find equations of the line. Now we're going to move into how to graph them given an equation. Okay. So how to graph given an equation. So the next part is they'll give us an equation and they'll ask us graph this equation. Well, the first thing to do when you're graphing them, there's really 3 steps or 3 different ways. We can use the T-cell method, which I won't cover here because we'll talk about it later. It's not really the preferred method. Next method after that is to solve it in slope-intercept form. And the third method is to use the intercept-intercept method. Now I'll do both those methods on this one, but I'm going to do first the slope-intercept form method. So the slope-intercept form is we need to first rewrite this equation into the slope-intercept form. So we need to solve for y. So we're going to move the 4x and the 9 over. So you're going to end up with 3y equals negative 4x minus 9. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 3, just like we did last time. And we end up with an equation in the slope-intercept form, where here's the slope, and here's the y-intercept. Okay? Now, once we have it in this form, we can use this to graph. So what you do is, I'll scroll down here, is we're going to do our coordinate system here. And we're going to graph the y-intercept, this is b. b is the y-intercept. We graph it first, and it's on the y-axis, and it's negative 3. So that would place it right here at negative 3. Then what you do is you're going to use the slope to find another point. So the slope says we're down 4 to the right 3. It's down because it's negative. So we're going to go down 4. There's down 4 from our point, and the right 3. And you'll be right here, and that will be your second point. And then you just connect the dots. You could, of course, gone up to the left 3 as well. Gone up 4, and then to the left 3. And it would have been somewhere over here, the left 3, right? 4, yeah. Okay. So that's graphing using the slope-intercept form. We could have graphed also using the other method. So again, we have 4x plus 3y plus 9 equals 0. The other method is intercept-intercept. So the x-intercept is when y equals 0, and the y-intercept is when x equals 0. So to use the intercept method is you just plug x equals 0, solve for y, and then plug y equals 0 and solve for x. So when we do that, you plug y equals 0, you're going to get 4x plus 9 equals 0. Subtract 9 from both sides. You get 4x minus 9, divide both sides by 4, and you'll have your x-intercept of negative 9/4. Okay? Which is somewhere right here. It's in between negative 2 and negative 3 somewhere. The next one is to find your y-intercept, which if we plug x equals to 0, you're going to end up with 3y plus 9 equals 0. Subtract 9 from both sides, you get 3y equals negative 9. Divide by 3, and you get y equals negative 3, which we've already done, and that's right here. So that's using your intercept method for graphing. Okay, so that's how you graph a linear equation. There are two special linear equations that we're going to talk about now, and that is when you have y equals a constant and x equals a constant. So example is y equals 5 and x equals maybe 3. Now, these are special ones because, not because you can't solve them, use the other method, it just takes a little bit of thinking. So we just cover them separately. This y equals c is a horizontal line at c. It's saying y equals some constant. So in this example, y equals 5. That means y is always 5, no matter what x is. X could be 2, 0, 1, negative 3, negative a million. Y is always 5. So when you graph that, there's 5 on the y-axis. And it's saying y always equals 5. When x equals 0, what is y? 5. When x equals 2, which is right here, what does y equal? 5. When x equals 10, way out here, what does y equal? 5. When x equals negative 5, what does y equal? 5. And when you connect those all up, you end up with a horizontal line. And so that is the equation of a horizontal line. It has a slope of equal to 0, and it looks like this. It's always y equals some constant. Now let's talk about vertical line. Vertical line is x equals some constant, because in this example, x equals 3. So what does x equal? Well, x equals 3. Here's 3. So x equals 3 whenever y equals anything. So when y equals 0, what is x? 3. When y equals 3, what does x equal? 3. Y equals negative 3, what does x equal? 3. When y equals 1, what does x equal? 3. When you connect the dots, you get a straight vertical line, and this has a slope that's undefined. And you find slope. Okay? Now, that's our two special cases we have to look at. The last thing in this chapter is how to find the equation line given a graph. We've looked at how to find the equation line given points, 2 points, how to find the equation line given a point and a slope. The last thing is how do you find the equation line given a graph. So what they'll do is they're going to give you a graph. Like that. And they're going to ask you to find the equation of the line. Now, There's various different ways of doing this. The first way is just to find 2 points on the line. If you can find 2 points, then you just do the 2 points and use the method that we used earlier. The second way is to find the slope and a point, in which case you find the slope and the point and use the other method we used earlier. And the third way is to find the slope and the y-intercept and then plug it into y equals mx plus b, which is what I'm going to do on this one, because I can see the intercept's at 4, and it looks like a slope is decreasing, so it's a negative slope, and it's going down 2 for every over 1. So down 2 over 1, that's the slope. And then I know that b equals 4, so then I can plug it in, y equals negative 2x plus 4. Okay? Hope that helps with this chapter. See you next time. Bye.